back to another episode of SEO On-Air. I'm your host, Aaron, and today we have Simon Gould, CEO of Sydney Digital Marketing Agency. We talk about the importance of content marketing, the basics of SEM, and the pros and cons of using AI in digital marketing. I hope you enjoyed this episode. How did you go from, let's say, enjoying that skateboard life to kind of getting into digital marketing and SEO?
I think I like things that are fast-paced, that move quickly, that are challenging, that take a bit of understanding and a bit of practice. So I think moving from skateboarding to digital marketing, sort of ticked a lot of the boxes for me in that respect. There's always something new to learn. But I've been in the digital space. I mean, it wasn't called digital back then, but I've been in the online space since dial-up, since 1996, 1997. SEO wasn't even a thing back then. I remember seeing the first animations on the internet. I think it was a company called Sausage Software, launched out of Melbourne, who launched like some of the first JavaScript animations online. So, yeah, my experience on the web goes back a long way. Yeah, almost 28 years, I think, 26, 27 years.
Back to the Yellow Pages days.
Back to the Yellow Pages days.
Yeah, I feel like now if you do talk about Yellow Pages to anyone in their 20s, let's say, they probably have no idea what we're talking about. But that pretty much was the SEO back then. You pretty much want to rank on the Yellow Pages instead.
Yep, aardvark logsmiths, AAA, or AAA glaziers. Everybody was looking to have that first position, to be the first in the Yellow Pages or to have the largest ad in the Yellow Pages. I mean, at the end of the day, it's always still about direct response. It's the same thing, whether it's Yellow Pages or whether it's online. It's still direct response marketing. It's still something that businesses need to be able to track.
I was going to add on to that by saying that how many changes, or at least big changes, have you seen since the Yellow Pages till today, in terms of, let's say, digital marketing and SEO?
From the Yellow Pages, it moved to like a CD-ROM, and you'd have a database of businesses on a CD-ROM, with the name, perhaps their revenue, perhaps their number, and then obviously it probably moved to more indexing, from CD-ROM to being online, to having a website. And then from there, obviously things like LinkedIn, still old school telemarketing, probably up until COVID, was still very much a thing, but now it's very difficult to get hold of people directly, at least as far as I understand. And I've done telemarketing myself on and off for years. So yeah, I think moving from paper to CD-ROM to online to now you can find pretty much, anyone, anywhere on the planet quickly.
Right. So how did the journey from, let's say, just being curious about the digital marketing sphere get into starting the Sydney Digital Marketing Agency? How did that journey kind of pan out?
That's a great question. I'd always had an online business, whether that was launching the world's first internet kiosk in 97 to managing, to launching an online-only telecommunications reseller in 2004. Then a business that was going to be selling smartphones via website online, again in sort of 2008, early days there. So I'd always had my hand in my own web-based online businesses, B2B mostly. And a friend of mine, I was at a junction, I was at a crossroads where I didn't know what to do. Do I go and get a job and work for a big corporate, or do I come up with another startup? And a friend of mine's wife said to me, "Hey, why don't you go and talk to businesses that are starting out on Facebook?" Because Facebook was just starting to monetize around this time, probably 2011 or so, and show people how to set up their Facebook page and market themselves on Facebook. So it was supposed to be a very casual lifestyle sort of business. And then within a few months of setting up, we got our first large client, which was BMW Sydney and Mini Garage Sydney, and sort of things went from there. That was more around social
It just
media.
kept snowballing.
Yeah, and it just kept smoking. I mean, having a great client like BMW really opened a lot of doors for us. Having one of those marquee clients first was a great opportunity for us.
And when you started off, let's say, did you have a whole bunch of services that you were offering, or did you kind of start off slowly with one or two services and then expand over time?
We started off, I think, with PPC, with mostly with AdWords, or with AdWords as it was known then, Google Ads. Then at the same time, probably social media marketing, helping people set up their social media presence. So we were doing, when organic reach and likes meant something, we were running campaigns to help build people's following, whether that was people like the Raw Food Kitchen, for instance, who was a close friend of mine, my girlfriend at the time. She was building a raw food business. We helped build her business up to 120,000 followers on Facebook. Or Guy Leach, who's a quadruple world champion Ironman here in Australia. So we started building his following as well, which enabled him to win some Guinness World Records because he had a big following. He got people down to the beach to do some world record fitness classes. So the big focus back then was probably around the social media side of things. It was,
Right.
You'd pay to reach people, but it was very, very cheap to build a following. As I say, when likes and the size of your followers really mattered. Now, obviously, it's more about engagement and obviously sales.
Yeah. One question is, this is actually kind of leading me to the next question, but who exactly are your, let's say, ideal clients for Sydney Digital Marketing? I'm trying to use that as an example for the rest of the podcast, but just curious.
For me, it's the business owner, founders. For my team, it's the marketing managers. I get on really well. I mean, I get on well with both, but what we find is once we move into campaigns, the business owner is so busy running their business that they've employed an agency. Guys, you just go and do it. But what business owners don't realize is that it's a collaborative approach. We need to be working with somebody who understands the business, who understands the market, the audience, the copy, the content.
Right.
So, we lead generation specialists, ideally in the business services space, talking to the founders and the marketing managers or marketing coordinator, or in some cases, marketing teams even. We work with teams of people who don't have the real digital expertise that my team brings, or we might just have somebody who's under-resourced and they've just got one person working in marketing.
Okay, so let me kind of build a hypothetical here. If to first kind of get an understanding, you do mean that majority of your clients would be, let's say, B2B, or is it a mix of B2B, B2C?
Yeah, it's a mix of B2B and B2C. We're not big in the e-commerce space because we've tried that, and you've got to be geared up differently as an agency to be able to support technically, dev-wise, coding-wise. You need to be on 24/7 because if somebody's shopping cart breaks, they're not open for business. So we've tried that, and we felt that working in the business services, professional services space, where it's lead generation and there's a real opportunity to nurture the buyer or the client through the journey, that's where we find that's our strong spot.
Would it be fair to say that if I am a plumbing agency who helps customers and clients with their plumbing solutions, would that be a good enough, let's say, an example for the rest of the questions? Or do you feel like this might be, you need a different service for that?
I would say probably something more like maybe financial services. That would be, we're working with a company at the moment who's launching a share trading platform. they've been in the space for 15 or 20 years, so they've got a great client, they've got great reputation, they've got great clients, but now they're moving into a new area, which is sort of a web app, trading app, and they need us to take them to market. So we could talk maybe a little bit around how we're doing that. What would be a typical engagement of either an existing client or a startup, maybe.
So let's take the example of a startup, but with the same kind of background. If I
Yep.
was the business owner of that startup and I came to you asking for help, how would you, let's say, help out if I had my first question was, how do I build off my SEO strategy for this finance institute?
So first thing we would do is we'd take them through a discovery process, discovery sort of workshop, where we would get to really understand their USP, their audience, where does their audience hang out, what are the audience pain points, what are their challenges. By understanding their audience, then we can start to tell the story. Everything, no matter what you're selling, everything is a story. So you have to come up with the correct story so that we can then translate that story into look and feel. So logo design, website design, tone of voice. And then taking all of those things, then we would start to do our keyword research and look at the volume. How do we need to structure the website from an SEO perspective? There's a lot of agencies that just specialize in building websites, or they just specialize in SEO, or they just specialize in social media marketing.
Right.
Our approach to websites and SEO is obviously starting with the end in mind. So really making sure that basic things like the sitemap, for instance, and the menus, the menu hierarchy, that everything is built with the end goal in mind. Starting with the sitemap and then starting to build out, doing the keyword research, looking at search volumes, looking at competitiveness for various keywords. Is the client, do they have a good PPC budget to help launch with, or are they totally going to be reliant in the first sort of 6 to 12 months on building organic traffic, getting some quick wins on, and then starting to reinvest that revenue, back into paid campaigns, perhaps.
Let's say I do have the budget for PPC, but I'm not really willing to spend that right now because I want to kind of first build out the organic side of things and then kind of get into it. So
Yeah.
for an SEO strategy, you kind of given me the basics of it. What would you say are some common mistakes that you see people like me making when incorporating these strategies?
I think the mistakes I see are the messaging is wrong. Your message to market match. To quote Dan Kennedy, he's one of the like the Colonel Sanders of direct marketing. Your message to market match. So I see a lot of people that have a great looking website, perhaps, but their copy is off. So when they're talking to their market, they're just not resonating with them. Perhaps they're talking all about their own features rather than talking about the benefits. At the end of the day, the majority of people just want to know what's in it for me. What am I going to get from business from buying from you rather than buying from the other guys? So I see the message is wrong or off the mark. I see slow loading pages. You can have the most beautiful website, but suddenly somebody somewhere's put a file that's a megabyte in size on there.
Yeah,
We see it
it's
all the
one of
time.
the
You
one of the
see
worst things
massive,
we've seen as well. A really
yeah.
good website with all the right content, but it takes too long to just open the homepage itself.
So a lot of people don't realize the importance of a fast loading site and how that impacts so many of Google's prerequisites. I think mobile load speed, certainly. I think that's dropped off a little bit, but it was sort of top of the list there in terms of its importance. But I see that sort of dropping back now. I think really it's majority of things is about context. Making sure that the context and the value of the information that you've got on there is legit, and that people are taking action as well. Again, from a just a basics perspective, just not having your Google Analytics set up to track basic goals, conversions, or events. All of those things send a signal back to Google, which can make or break your position or your SERP position, your SERP. So there's some of the they're basic things that we see. Naming hierarchies, just some really basic things, which as a business owner you might not know, but if you're paying someone to develop a website for you, and this company develops websites for a living, I would expect that website to come out of the box ticking all of the SEO boxes. And I would say 80% of the time we see sites that come to us. The guy goes, we spent 6 months building our site. It took us forever, and we spent a bit more money on it than we should have. And we look at it and it's getting an F on GT metrics, or we're putting it into, Lighthouse or Google PageSpeed Insights. And, it's loading in 7.5 seconds or 18 seconds.
Jeez.
Yeah. And so the owner goes, well, why didn't the web agency tell me this? And we go, well, yeah, we don't know why. It just seems.
Right. I think it's just even in that case to just clean it up than to actually explain what happened.
Yeah. And we always start, if it's a new website, we always start with a bit of an audit. Well, not a bit of an audit. We will start with a thorough audit to go through and make sure that it's fit for purpose. Because if somebody's going to be dropping, $5,000 or $50,000 a month on their paid campaigns, we want to make sure that the site is ticking the technical SEO boxes. Otherwise, the money that they're spending to send traffic there is going to be wasted through poor user experience.
So kind of another hypothetical within this hypothetical is, if I approached you with by far the worst website you've seen, how long will it take for you to kind of audit it and then implement some changes to it to make it at least a bit decent?
Normally takes us about 5 working days to come up with a report. I mean, look, they can be run very, very quickly. Obviously, the report itself can be run in minutes these days. But for us then to overlay that with some context and some insights, we would normally take sort of 3 to 5 days, again, just depending on
how terrible my website is.
Yeah, how terrible your website is. Yeah, but also on just in terms of workflow internally. And then again, 1 to 2 weeks to allow for us to fix it and whip it into shape, depending on whether it's copy that's got to be done or design that's got to be done. But from a technical SEO perspective, we'd normally say sort of 3 to 5 days. So to answer your question, sort of 2 weeks from start to finish, to get us to a point where we would go, okay, this is better than it was when it came to us. You're fit to go to market now, but there might be some other things that we'd need to do along the way.
Yeah, I think some clients are very eager to get their results within the first 2 weeks itself, but that's about the results, like the final result. To just kind of finish off the back end work and cleaning it up, that might take 2 weeks. I'm trying to build that picture where people who are listening to this kind of understand that SEO will take time. It's not something that can be done with overnight kind of experience.
And I do see some very talented and respected SEO engineers on LinkedIn talking to the short game, and that anybody who tells you that SEO is, a long game is just trying to take your money. But, look, sometimes there are some quick wins.
Right.
We're in a competitive space. Obviously, you've spoken to a lot of them, I'm sure, but, there's hundreds of agencies in Sydney alone. So for us, the name Sydney Digital Marketing Agency was designed with obviously SEO in mind. I wasn't sure, 10 years ago, I wasn't sure whether it was going to be Sydney online marketing agency or Sydney digital marketing agency. I didn't know which way it would go, but luckily it went our way. It went to digital as the majority of the search terms. But I can see we always hold the number one position for that search term because we own the domain and obviously we've got some domain authority. We've been in business for I had the name for 10 years. But it's volatile. And I remember hearing somebody who I really respect in the industry as an agency owner a few years back, and he said, we now tell clients to really see game-changing results, it's a 2-year process. And I remember saying to Ben, who's our GM at the time, I said, so-and-so's just, he's come out there and said, to see results, it would take 2 years. Can you imagine going to our clients and telling them, they've got to sort of sit back for 2 years till they really see the big results? He was right. If I look at the clients that have been with us for 18 months and beyond, where their business is when they started with us and where we've taken them to, in some cases we've one business in particular, their revenue is up, I think, 350% in terms of revenue. Another business we've added probably, $3 million in top line revenue in the last sort of 4 or 5 years that they've been with us. 20 times ROAS, 25 times ROAS, SEO, PPC, and social media, and some email marketing.
Do you ever feel like it's difficult to convince the client that it's going to take 2 years? Because some of them might just be like, I'm not going to wait that long.
Yeah, and look, we don't. I never sit there with a new client. I might use that anecdotally and say, look, if you're really prepared to invest, and we ask our clients, do you view marketing as a cost or an investment? Obviously, we want to work with people who view it as an investment, which it is. Right. But we say, ideally, we want 6 weeks or so to get people set up, to really understand their business, to run through discovery, to test a few hypotheses. 6 weeks ago to get set up. Then we're in market for 6 to 7 weeks so that we can get enough data to really get a feel for what's working, which then, if it's paid data, that then feeds back into our SEO strategy as well, because we can see very quickly which keywords are starting to get traction for them and which ones are converting. Right. So let's go out and write a blog, pillar and cluster blog series on a certain topic, which will drive traffic organically. So yeah, ideally it's a minimum of 6 months really before we can start to see what we feel is the opportunity to build on. Right. By 12 months, you definitely got data. A lot of people want to see, as you've said, they want to see results immediately, and they think just because it's digital, you place an ad, you turn it on, you can track it. But there's a process. You've got to build trust. You have to build authority. People have to really see what's in it for them as well, and that comes back to correct messaging, good messaging. But yeah, it's definitely something that you need to invest time and money in.
And in all of this, let's say, where does content marketing play a role? So while we are developing SEO and kind of building out the size structure and the technical side of things, how do I make sure the content marketing kind of aligns with that and boosts my company?
I was reading just yesterday that, the big dogs of content production, the guys that are posting and got really great engagement on LinkedIn, for instance, or Twitter, are putting in 15 to 20 hours a week into their content production. It's like 30-40% of your working week, and you're trying to run a business as well. So, just to get some perspective around it, I try and put a video a week out on LinkedIn, which ties into a blog post on our site. So I'll talk to that via my video post. We'll send people over there, to like a 3,000 word blog post or something. We try and keep it. Sometimes we go a little bit deep and technical, But our blog is for business owners and marketing managers. It's not for devs, SEO engineers. Last week we did sort of the ultimate guide to GA4. GA4 has been out in the wilds now for a month. A lot of people are sort of running around with their hair on fire, even though everybody was prepared for it, because they've lost certain reports or certain insights or tracking, and which is then fed back into their PPC campaigns that are. I'll give you a perfect example. One of our clients was on a booking platform. I won't name the booking platform, but suddenly the goals that were being tracked by her Google Analytics from the booking platform weren't firing back to GA4, which meant it wasn't firing back to AdWords or Google Ads. So,
Right.
She went from, I think, 30 bookings a month, let's say, down to 2, simply because the conversion actions weren't firing.
Yeah.
And so AdWords was running blind. No one picked it up. No one picked up that the scheduling software wasn't talking. So it was one of those ones where you have to run around and look under every single, pixel to find the solution. But yeah, so we thought, let's go out with GA4. It's been a month. Let's talk to that at a top level. Content marketing is huge. Only 1% of people on LinkedIn are producing, are creators. So you've got 800 million people on that platform. Only 1% of them are actually creating things. So it's a huge opportunity for any business. Any business is a media company now. We've got phones, we've got microphones, we've got the ability to produce. We got the ability to create content and then distribute it infinitely. So there's no excuse really for anybody here. The only excuse really is you just don't want to do it. You're just not comfortable putting yourself out there, either with a personal picture or with video. Gary Vee
We're doing that with this podcast itself.
Yeah, that's right. Whether it's a
we're trying to, at
podcast.
least.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, any business these days has the opportunity to become a media business and to promote themselves, promote their personality, promote their people, promote their. It's not all about product. Get people buy from people, and content has really enabled people to get behind the scenes and really get to know people or really get to know the brand before, becoming part of the brand.
One question to kind of, let's say, I wouldn't say tie a bow on this whole thing, but more of kind of leaning into what you started off first, which is PPC ads. So with SEO in mind, right? Like the business that I'm doing is a financial institution, and I've kind of worked out the SEO side of things. To a point, I've done a bit of content marketing as well. How would I start off my PPC now?
Again, it's really important to understand your persona, understanding their pain points and challenges. So we're working with a property investment group at the moment, for instance, that are they've been around for 15 years. They're running some masterclass workshops to bring people in and educate them on property investment. So we think about our audience. We think about their pain points and challenges, putting ourselves in our clients' or potential clients' shoes. What would be the sorts of things that we would be going out and searching for? And then we'll just go off and start using, obviously just go straight to Google and see what sort of search terms are coming up. We've got a couple of tools that we use that just plug straight into Chrome that give us sort of search volumes and CPCs and competitiveness. And then we will take some of those seed keywords and then just break them down into a number of ad groups or maybe some separate campaigns. Some might target education, some might target wealth, some might target investment, some might target location. Where's the best place to invest in property in Australia in 2023? We cast our net fairly wide to begin with in terms of PPC, and then we will never go out with sort of the full budget either. We'll just sort of test the waters a little bit, see where the fish are biting. Turn off the in the areas that aren't working, and then steer our budgets towards the areas that are working. AdWords has got a lot like all things digital, it's got a lot more complex over the years. There's some brilliant people out there who are absolute guns at just AdWords or absolute guns at just SEO. We like to sort of bring a generalist capability where, you know, we within our business, we've got, you know, we use the team model where, you know, you've sort of, you know, marketing automation, you know, SEO, you know, PPC, but you might be absolutely expert in Facebook marketing, or you might be absolutely expert in technical SEO or building backlinks or something to, you know, to that degree. And we generally bring in a lot of our staff. I'd say 50% of our staff we've trained up from the ground up. They might have a marketing degree, but we've taken them, you know, as graduates and just brought them through in the Sydney digital marketing way. Most of our staff have been with us over 3.5 years. So I think we're doing something right there.
Yeah, I think anything less than that might be a bit shady. Why people would be joining and then leaving off immediately.
That's right.
But one kind of quick question. In this area specifically, PPC, is there any scope for AI to help out, or is that something that should be kept separate?
I think it's a huge opportunity for businesses to dive into and really get to understand how it works and where business can leverage it. Obviously, you know, we're in August now, so sort of the hype cycle for AI, you know, sort of dived off a little bit in maybe the last month or 6 weeks or so. But from a opportunity perspective, you know, I still go, wow, the last 6 months, look at all of these platforms that have come out. Some of them are absolutely brilliant. Some of them are, you know, I used it once or twice, not so much. But I think AI from an SEO perspective, in terms of supporting you with content, helping you to repurpose content, taking old blog posts, having them rewritten, and from an SEO perspective, I think from any business owner who is probably not looking to work with an agency, but just wants to be able to up their game slightly, should absolutely be leveraging. You know, not just ChatGPT these days. You know, obviously it's ChatGPT. There's Bard. There's Claude. There's a number of platforms, you know, LLMs that are worth looking at and exploring. So no, we feel that. In fact, it's funny. I'm dragging my team into the AI arena, even though they're a lot younger than myself. I'm 55, but I'm dragging them into saying, guys, you know, we've got to roll our sleeves up and get stuck into this. But I think there's still quite a bit of uncertainty around how I should use it, how to get the most out of it. And I would urge everybody to go out and at least do a little bit of education themselves about how to get the most out of these platforms, because there's a lot of people out there giving away some really valuable content on LinkedIn. You know, it doesn't take long for you to upskill a little bit, whether you're creating images using Midjourney, for instance, or whether you're outputting content, whether that's blog posts or content to post. I find it, extremely invaluable.
So I'm hoping the conversations that we have kind of tell them that this is still just a tool, but not a replacement for humans. That would be Skynet.
Yeah. And robotics. I mean, ultimately, I still think people should be concerned, but there's levels of concern, you know. And I think, you know, as with anything new, there's been a hype cycle. You know, the press loves to get out there, and you get a few people out there sort of, you know, with a few sound bites. It's a very exciting time for humanity, you know, but also for technology, because it's just creating efficiencies that literally just 10 months ago weren't in the public domain. I mean, AI is nothing new, but certainly the large language models, the LLMs, you know, the GPT type models and Midjourney, the accessibility of this technology now, that's what's exciting.
And
where
hopefully it
will we
just
be?
doesn't go too far.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I view 2023 as day one in AI. Even though we're sort of 8 months into this sort of hype now, and I see new stuff coming out every single day, and I'm really, I have been caught up in the excitement of it all. But I think where will we be in 18 months' time, 2 years' time, as you said, what it's doing to be able to edit podcast videos. We use it to edit out my weekly video as well. We use a platform. It just uses a little bit of AI just to touch up the sound and make the
Just do a little bit of like the menial things you don't have to do. You can mainly focus on what clips you want to include.
So yeah, no,
I feel like
and again, as an agency, you need to be able to talk this future speak. You need to be able to talk to clients and say, look, let's take you on
exactly.
this journey. We see an opportunity here for you to improve efficiencies within your business using some AI tools or some AI platforms. And we need to know about those.
What are 3 books or podcasts that you would recommend our viewers and listeners?
Podcasts, I think the All In podcast with David Sachs, Chamath Palihapitiya, Jason Caldonis, and David Friedman. I think, the All In podcast is terrific from a global geopolitics, business, entrepreneurial, crypto space. I also follow Dr. Benjamin Hardy, PhD. He's written some great books. 10x is easier than 2x. I'm also reading at the moment the Genius Zone. The Gap and the Gain by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. All very good. And another book that I've read recently that was very interesting is The Fourth Turning, which talks about periods of time throughout history of sort of 80 years or so, and how each one goes through this 20-year cycle, four 20-year cycles within this 80-year sort of epoch. Very interesting, especially given the times that we're in at the moment, where we're sort of seeing big transformation across the globe in all sorts of areas. So podcasts, definitely the All In. Who else have I got on my podcast list? 8-Figure Agency, Jordan Ross, lovely guy. Builds has got a great business consulting to agencies. He is his podcast is called How to Scale an Agency. And Diary of a CEO is another one that I enjoy as well.
So thank you so much for the chat, Simon. I have no idea where the time went. I think we asked probably 2 questions and then we just stayed on with that. So hopefully we can get more of that done in our second episode if you are down for that.
100%.
Thanks for watching that episode. I hope you enjoyed. For more videos like this, make sure you like and subscribe.